I'm not proud of my powers, but yeah, I guess we just come on, Mel Tucker. Mack Brown is out at UNC. He will coach the regular season finale against NC State. He will coach the bowl game. He will not return for the 2025 season. North Carolina, power conference job now open. News breaks on Tuesday morning. It comes after, about a week ago, we get the reporting that he is telling everybody else he intends to return. If I remember correctly, I said I would too. Then, on Monday, he's coming out at the press availability saying, yeah, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be back. Coach, are you worried about all your high school recruits in the early signing class that are all flipping right now? You're ranked number 78 in the country with your recruiting class. He said, no, don't worry about that. It's going to be a heavy portal year for us. That's what we're going to do. Small high school class, big portal class. Are all these things connected? We'll see. This is a very layered situation. But the final result, which, again, kind of thankful, props to UNC for breaking this 30 minutes before we had a show when we were all planning to speak to each other. You're a real one, Bubba. Lawrence, thanks for doing that. Mack Brown, no longer at North Carolina. I'll shut up. Tom, thoughts?
First of all, as soon as I heard the news, I ran and put on my sissy blue hoodie to show my support for you and Tar Heel Nation.
Thank you.
It's more the timing that surprised me than anything. Like I feel like you'd been draping the crepe pretty well these last couple of weeks, and even with Max kind of, I'll be back. It was always there was crickets from actually North Carolina saying, "Oh yeah, he's definitely coming back." And when a coach is saying, "I'll be back," and nobody else at the school tends to tell you what's about to happen. But the timing was weird. But I guess they just wanted to kind of do like a send off this weekend more than anything, as far as Mac's tenure. It'll be interesting to see moving forward where they go from here, because this is the first Power 4 gig that's opened, which means right now it is far and away the most attractive job on the market. So do they have somebody kind of lined up already, or are they actually going to go into this open for a search?
I don't know if they have somebody lined up. I don't know if you can have somebody totally lined up, because you don't know what other schools are going to open, right? You can maybe think you have somebody lined up, but what happens if like a more attractive job just suddenly opens up? Then maybe the guy you have lined up is no longer in your line. I do think this is a smart move for UNC overall. Mack did a very good job on the whole, but there's no way you could objectively look at the situation and think it was going to get better. I mean, you had Howell and you had Drake May, and you had the results that you did with those guys. I think North Carolina can be better than what Mack Brown had them at. I mean, maybe not a ton better, but I just don't think this was heading in the right direction. Some of the guys that they had signed, who were highly rated coming out, maybe that's our fault for rating them high. Maybe that's Mack and his staff's fault for not developing them. I don't know. You guys kind of take your pick. Some of the same stuff happened at Texas, though, so I kind of know, where I lean on that. Those guys definitely had some pretty special, height, weight, speed measurables coming out. And I think, much like we talked about, would Kentucky make a move on Mark Stoops yesterday, North Carolina is now far and away the best job on the market. I mean, it's gonna have its pick unless something else opens.
Mack Brown was undeniably better than Larry Fedora.
Yes.
And Larry Fedora came in after Butch Davis gave a lot of fireworks, but ultimately we did not see, big time, huge breakthroughs. Mack Brown was the most successful North Carolina head coach since Mack Brown. Like he was.
Maybe they should bring him back for a third time.
But I think that what is undeniable is that even with that being true, he fell short of expectations. The way that the teams would start strong, then kind of crumble at the end, the way that nearly every season had at least one result that was baffling. Like the number of times that this North Carolina football program in the last 6 years lost as a double-digit favorite was far too often.
3-score favorite was like agreed. I mean, the 17 plus was, I think it's like 6 times in the last 3 years. It just, yeah. I took them off my betting sheet basically. Like I will not lay 3 scores with Carolina because it like the chance that they lose the game outright is scary to me.
He raised the floor. He fixed the vibes, which had gotten toxic. Because again, Larry Fedora won 5 games in his last 2 seasons combined, and no one was coming to the games. It was like very, very down bad. And Mack Brown was able to do that. I do think that that's why, Tom, to your point, I do think that Saturday in Kenan Stadium against NC State, it will be more of a thanks for all you've done, gratitude fest, a little bit rather. And honestly, better move than having it be Mack's future hanging in the balance. Now the fans show up to that and they're not frustrated about the future. They want to be able to be there, root for their university, say thank you to Mack Brown, who has made North Carolina more nationally relevant in his 2 stints than at any other time through North Carolina's history. But North Carolina's history is the important part here. North Carolina's history is a 500 program. North Carolina's last ACC championship was in 1980. North Carolina has very, very few like true breakthrough type moments. And oftentimes those highest of highs are always with a ceiling or with somebody ahead of you in order. There is long been a belief, sleeping giant this, sleeping giant that because North Carolina is in a state whose population continues to increase, that the high school talent in the state of North Carolina continues to increase, because North Carolina is the flagship university here, and because you've got the big brand of the University of North Carolina, that North Carolina should strive for better than 500. I don't know that every North Carolina sports fan wants that or cares enough about that. And that's why I'm kind of fascinated for the people that matter. If this is a, who do you want to be? Because there's an example of another basketball school, big air quotes here, basketball school that said, no, we're ready to get serious about this. And they just gave Curt Cignetti a big ass serious deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they, in addition to getting Cignetti and being able to give him the money to bring his staff and in the re-up with the extension, getting his assistants paid in a really big way, like they are investing in the football program and being serious about their football program in a way that shows that they understand that those basketball banners are great. And the fact that all your fans like love the glory days is awesome. But to be at the very highest levels of college sports, if we go through any kind of major shift or major alignment, like forget conference realignment, if there is like, NCAA-wide divisional realignment, you cannot have an unserious football program and expect to get a ticket. And I wonder if that's how this breaks the other way. Because we said power conference jobs aren't opening because of the uncertainty with the House settlement, the potential of $20 million that's going to be coming onto the athletic department budget, revenue sharing, and all these things. Like we'd rather just hang tight. And to be honest, that's why I thought they would stick with Mack Brown, because Mack Brown's going to guide you through this uncertain time. But what if it's the other way and you say like, no, we need to show that we are serious about our football program. And this is an opportunity for us to go make a serious football hire as the best job available in this coaching cycle. I have to think that's got to be part of the calculus here. That's not sourced. That is speculation, just sort of reading the facts as they're laid on the table.
Also, Chip, I mean, if you sat Mack Brown down, couldn't you say like what direction is this going? Right? Why is this going to get better in the next few years as opposed to worse? I think that's a relevant question. And if he doesn't have a good answer for that, like that's kind of when you pull the plug.
Well, Bud, I like to fix things.
Sure. I covered a guy.
That is 100% what he would say. He likes to fix things. He likes to help people get better. He said, I sit up in my office and I get mad at the university and I get mad at like the transfer portal. And then I go down to eat lunch and I start talking to the players and I just want to help them get better. I mean, he's a people person who wears his heart on his sleeve through and through, to the point where he nearly fired himself earlier this season, and then he tried to rehire himself.
Yeah, he fired himself, then he extended himself. He did a whole lot of things to himself this year.
I mean, again, I think that emotion is what makes him who he is and what probably would cloud any real response for your question, Bud, of like, so where is this going? What is the game plan here? Because from a roster building, from a recruiting, from a general trajectory and direction perspective, there wasn't a big pop or a big level up that was very obvious in the near future.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Well, forget the analyzing. Put on your fan hat. Who do you want?
So I would say that 2 weeks ago, like let's start like as local as it is with like the guys that I was living with in Chapel Hill. Number one was John Summerall. And the conversations were, but we don't think we can get him because someone else is going to come in line to jump ahead of you for John Summerall. I would say, first thing I did was answer the phone from Randy Brickley. Second thing I did was jump on here on the Cover 3 podcast. I'll text my old roommates later, but I would assume that that's the most popular name here. I think everyone recognizes from his work at Troy, from having a great season with Tulane, and just his coaching chops, that is the kind of, not the hot coach on the rise who's an offensive whiz kid who had coffee with Sean McVay or high-fived Cliff Kingsbury, but somebody who seems to understand like the full team building, coaching program stuff. And that's what you need. That's the one that's probably the one that I would say would be my answer, just because it would at least give the most encouragement about where this could go, as opposed to the splashy name that you don't really trust, as opposed to somebody with a little bit of home cooking who might be, taking a hometown discount. I think a serious football hire is hiring the most qualified coach that is on the rise. And I think John Summerall probably fits that description.
It's probably the only year in which you're going to have a real shot to get John Summerall.
Jeez, well, then that's why you do it.
Right. Like, let's think about the jobs that we think could open this year. Arkansas, UNC is a better job than Arkansas. It's not a P2 job, but the money is within $1 million, I think. And I can coach at UNC for a decade. I'm going to get fired at Arkansas after 5 years, just like every other coach at Arkansas does. That's a one paycheck job, or that's a one contract job. You take it because you're going to get rich. You really can't win there. At least nobody in our lifetime has. So I would rather have UNC than Arkansas. I think I would rather have UNC than Kentucky. Summerall would have to answer that if Kentucky were to open, because obviously he, very tight with Mark Stoops and would know the ins and outs of that job, quite a bit. Now, next year, let's think about what jobs SEC could open. Ole Miss could open, right? I don't think it's super likely, but if you don't think that situation could go south after this year, I got nothing for you. LSU could open. Obviously, they passed on Napier in their own backyard last time. I don't think that's necessarily a bad call, but things seem to be trending up now at Florida, and he just beat you. Are you going to pass on another guy in your backyard this year? So like LSU could open, Ole Miss could open, Auburn could open, and there are so many better jobs than UNC which could open next year. And Tulane's probably going to be good again next year. This is why, if that's the guy you want to get, you had to make this move now, because you're number one right now over some SEC schools. All of the SEC schools which could open next year, unless I'm missing one, are better jobs than Carolina. I think it's going to be up to Summerall if he's the top choice. Like, do you roll the dice and pass on probably $6 million a year guaranteed, 5.5, something like that? That's $30 million for your family. Or do you want to roll the dice and say you can run this thing back at Tulane and get a better job next year? But I bet you Carolina is one of the very few non-P2 jobs that a guy in an American conference, like thinking he can jump to the SEC, would actually consider.
We'll find out on Thursday. If Tulane loses, we know that John's already been focused on the UNC job.
If it's not Summerall, who else would you consider?
Oh, buddy, then we wade into some very like grab bag kind of waters, because there are names.
A Chadwell guy?
What?
Are you a Chadwell guy? He's from the mountains, right? I mean,
That's where I think you're going. Like you're playing a little bit too much into the you're playing a little bit too much into just trying to draw connections to the state of North Carolina, to which I would remind you that Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher were born in West Virginia and won national championships in the state of Louisiana, Florida, and Alabama. Like, just, it might be a reason why they would want to come home. That should not be a reason why a university reaches out to you.
Mullen?
Dan Mullen?
Yeah.
That would be a Mack Brown hire. It would be literally taking the same analyst from the same ESPN halftime desk.
Yeah, okay.
Letting him come right back. And like, look, and I do
very different styles of coaching, though.
Very different styles of coaching, but I do not think that would be the Dan Mullen has been so non-aggressive about his pursuit of jobs and so seemingly comfortable with the gig that I'd be concerned. Don't you want a little more hunger in your coaching candidate? Don't you want to know that this is like not somebody who's like, oh, hell yeah, Chapel Hill's awesome. Or do you understand how nice it is to just live in Chapel Hill? And you know what fans do once basketball season starts? They stop paying attention.
I don't disagree with that.
The funniest possible outcome to me, the wouldn't it be hilarious, and it won't happen, would be UNC hires Gus, and then Chip has to root for the putt-putt offense.
That's...
Do you know who I was thinking was? Nah, never mind. We should maybe save that. Well, actually, we'll talk about it in Big Game Breakdown.
Yeah.
Help me put a pin in that, and just help me remember that I'm getting very close to throwing out some slanderous allegations at Texas's offense as it pertains to a clown's mouth. Okay.
Coordinator-wise, do you think coordinator is an option?
Let's see. So Glenn Schumann. I'm sure everybody would just do like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like, okay. How did it work last time? Well, Dan Lanning has built a monster, like that's okay, fine. That sounds good. By the way, the number of people in the Cover 3 tailgate who have suggested who else? Mike Bobo for North Carolina just continues to be tremendous content through and through. Glenn Schumann comes to mind. Who else would you put on that list?
Like guys who have had multiple years of success in a row. Will Stein in Oregon, I guess, but I don't know how the age thing and he does. I don't know if he has connections that they feel like are necessary. Man, it's hard this year. Like there's not a ton of those dudes. Who else coordinator wise?
Well, so all right. So if they, I would not.
Dion?
I mean, yeah. Are you kidding? If Dion wants to come to the University of North Carolina, absolutely. Like
DJ Fleck?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
Ray Lewis?
No. What about Chip Kelly?
I think Chip is loving the crap out of being an offensive coordinator.
I think so too.
Would you want Barry Odom?
That's a good one. Would Barry want North Carolina?
Could you scoop Manny Diaz?
No.
Okay.
That would be an unbelievable heist.
Yeah.
But I don't see that one going down. Andy Kotelnicki was another one that was brought up in the tailgate. Could work.
Sure, absolutely.
But again, in terms of the head coaching, building out a program, I think that's why the conversation starts a little bit more. Like I would maybe put Barry Odom before Kotelnicki.
What if Dan Mullen's the wrong ESPN analyst? What if Coach Saban's getting itchy?
You know what? Truthfully, a good part of my personality has been built on just listening to stuff that Nick Saban has said. Like it just rattles around in my skull. I mean, that's what happens when, we start covering college football, like literally right around the time that Saban gets that thing going. Like those are the formative years of us being professionals in this sport and just following that career all the way through. I think I would be able to sit in and I might sit in on every single press conference. I can't quit Saban. Absolutely. You know what? Nick Saban in North Carolina, Nick Saban in North Carolina, Nick Saban to North Carolina. Let's get it.
Is there an NFL guy who played at UNC?
There are several
who might make sense, like somebody coaching.
Let's see. I know Arthur Smith. It's a UNC guy.
Is he? What about Clark Lee?
He's not leaving Vandy.
I don't think he's leaving Vandy.
Is Pavia coming back? Because
I'm sure Clark wouldn't mind having his name floated with the job, but I don't think he's leaving Vandy.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay. All right. Well, if it's the only power conference job open, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about it. Any other final words before we can finally get into big game breakdown?
Where do we rank this job real quickly? Like, is it a top? Like, if you are a coach who has good options, but not like Ohio State level options, you're not going to be the Bama coach. Where do you rank this? So like you think it's like a top 30 place to work, a top 20?
Not.
I'd say, I feel like the landscape on that has shifted because like SEC, Big Ten are so, as far as financials are concerned, are just different right now compared to other jobs. So I think you could look at like a bottom tier Big Ten or SEC job as being more attractive than North Carolina right now. But I would say solidly top 30.
Yeah,
I think so too. Like Carolina's got some money, right? And they also don't have to play the other teams that have all the money. Like that's the thing is coaches are people too. Like they have to kind of think like, where can I try to raise my family? Like there's certain jobs in the SEC and the Big Ten, they're pretty much a one contract job. Like Beaver's going to get extended to South Carolina, but that's about it. Pittman's not going to last long. Mississippi State, the way that stuff's going, like that's going to be a one contract guy most likely. I can coach for like a decade at Carolina, make a lot of money, win a lot of ball games. If I do a good job.
I can make a list of 15 jobs that I can confidently say would rank ahead of the North Carolina job in a vacuum. I can't. It gets really tricky when we're talking about top 20 versus top 30, but I feel very confident that you're not going to get to 35 without throwing North Carolina in there. And if you put North Carolina at 35, it's because you believe they don't care about football. If North Carolina is activated, and this is, God, I'm so sorry for going long on this.
No, it's a good topic.
All right. So North Carolina Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham, when Larry Fedora is fired, there are some people that help arrange for that to happen. Any coach gets fired, you need to raise money for the buyout. I'm not breaking any news or giving any like dirty details there, but it was pretty clear that Mack Brown was the desired candidate to replace Larry Fedora. When Roy Williams retires, Roy's like, and guess what? It's going to be Hubert. We have not seen this athletic director or this staff go in with a clean slate, an open job, and see if they can go make a hire. I've said a lot. I don't get into like the admin circles. I don't drink white wine in the hotel lobby with all these guys, but like I am interested on that level to see what North Carolina in 2024 going to the open market, see what kind of hire they can make, because it's really the first major hire that we've seen them make in the revenue sports.